Welcome aboard the Tabletop Express. I am back with Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really thrilled you brought up this topic with me a week or so ago, and that we are here to talk about the greatest thing in the world, which is Marvel.
Batman? Oh,
The,
sorry. I need a new
no, not
listing.
Batman.
Okay.
No, not Batman. No, we could do DC sometime, but we are here to talk about Marvel.
Let's not go crazy.
No.
Marvel's where it's at.
Marvel is where it's at.
And
but
go ahead.
Marvel themed games, everybody. We're going to share 5 of our favorites Marvel themed games. Ryan, before we kick this off, I have to ask you, what are some games that you maybe wanted to include but haven't played or are just quite didn't make the cut for you?
Sure. So this list was actually pretty fun to put together, but the ones that I know are not going to be on my list that I really wanted to play beforehand. It's Marvel Crisis Protocol is a miniatures game. I really want to get to the table. I just haven't. Hail Hydra, I haven't gotten to the table. And Infinity Gauntlet Love Letter, I have not gotten to the table. Those are 3 big ones. I didn't want to include things like Marvel Codenames or things that kind of had the IP slapped on it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, of those missing games, those are the 3 that I have not played that
Perfect.
On this list.
Yeah, so for me, just to point out, there's a new Marvel Smash Up that's out. I have not played it. I would love to try Marvel Splendor again. I've played a prototype of it, but I can't really speak much to what the final product looked like. And then I will note, I considered Codenames, but again, same kind of reasons that you pointed out. It's really Codenames.
Right.
The difference is Marvel is on it. There's no major. I mean, it's Hydra agents instead of other things. It's not that exciting.
Right.
It's a fun game, and I think it is great for Marvel fans because it is a little. You're not going to know all the characters if you aren't a Marvel fan, so I think it adds some challenge to it.
Sure.
But that said, it's an IP game. It is an IP game, and there's nothing wrong with IP games. This case, it's IP game where it's like plastered on, and that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
So what I do want to talk about is a game that some might argue, by the way, is that type, but I don't think it is. I have played it. I think it meets the theme, and I just have a lot of fun with it. This is also a game, I will say, yeah, it's fair to say IP game because it is based off of another game. But for me, this game is a ton of fun, and it just cracks my list. That is 5 Minute Marvel. And there's a reason I really like this game. Thematically, it works. You're cooperative, you're collaborative. It improves upon the base game of 5 Minute Dungeon, which is what was the original game. But it does this in a great way because every character has their own deck in this game that has this unique piece to it. And then you've got the kind of general deck that everyone's pulling from. In this game, though, you are working fast and furious to try and beat some bad guys. You are collaborative, you're communicating, but it is in 5 minutes that you are trying to beat these guys. 6 villains in this game. And the goal really is get through all 6. That's what you're going to try and accomplish. The neat thing that I will want to say about this game is it's a great way to introduce people. Even though it definitely has a party feel to it, it's a great way to introduce people into a modern game. And at the same time, people will be surprised how quick it goes. And here's the other thing I add to it. It's got this really great use of an app, which is a 5-minute counter that is Jarvis. Yeah. And it's a nice little integration. The reason it is at 5 is because in a lot of ways, it does kind of qualify under that. They did put a theme on it, but they definitely changed up a few things. And they tweaked it. And what I want to say is I think they improve upon the base game of 5 Minute Dungeon. The other thing I would say is I have one minor complaint, which is there is a Rocket and Groot card where there's a misspelling and it drives me up a wall.
Oh, no.
And yes, it's my only complaint about the game. But it's a great, fun game to try with family, friends. They're going to enjoy it. It's chaotic. It is chaotic. But
I've played this before. And this actually probably falls in my number 6. It was actually on the list when I started. But there's other games that for family, especially, I feel like other Marvel games have knocked it out. But I will say this. Marvel 5 Minute Marvel is actually pretty fun because it has an interesting roster. Like you don't see Squirrel Girl too
I
often
know.
for things, which is pretty cool.
You never see
I
Squirrel Girl
yeah,
anywhere. And that
right,
I like what property, what game is she in right now?
right.
Not that many.
She's in 5 Minute Marvel.
That's that is it. She has her own card and whole set. And I think on Squirrel Girl, she even has squirrels on some of her cards, which based on the
Right.
number of like they've got a whole piece where number of squirrels out, she gets a certain capability. I mean, they do a good job with her.
Yeah, I
So
was really looking forward to hopefully expansions. I don't know if that's going to happen still, but I could definitely. I mean, it's such an easy system to add more heroes if that was the case.
yes, by the way, we do have some love for Squirrel Girl from
Right.
Ryan. So
Yeah.
very well deserved, Ryan. Thank you. But again, when it comes down to this game, obviously a fun game. I want to just say that worth trying if you have not tried it. I think a lot of people may not have played. I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people have played your next game,
Oh.
or if they haven't, it might not be in a long time.
Oh yeah.
So
So well, there's definitely still a backing. So my number 5 is the game that got me into the hobby way back when in high school, and this is HeroClix, of course. So HeroClix started in 2002 with the Marvel IP. The next year DC came in, and it's you basically just construct a team and you go out and you just punch each other or shoot each other. There are some missions that you could do where there's like objective points, but no one plays objective points. It's always just, can I take out this team? It's a lot of fun for the time. I do feel like that Crisis Protocol has taken the reins from this based off of, because I didn't get a chance to play Crisis Protocol, but I
right.
watched some streams of it and I've read the rules for Crisis Protocol. So I was very close to actually playing it. But for HeroClix, it was just like a great entry point into the hobby for me. So this is like a nostalgic pick. I used to play this a lot in high school after school. We'd have tournaments. Galactus was part of HeroClix. I still have all my HeroClix in this giant crate. I don't know if you could see that.
We'll put it. We will center you right away here. Let's show it. Bring that up.
Yeah, these are all my HeroClix. They're all in there. So just got it from my parents' attic. But yeah, HeroClix is it's fun. It's nostalgic. And I do love playing it. I did especially love playing Dr. Doom in it. He was my favorite of all the HeroClix. I used to have a team called the Doom Boom. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. Anyways, HeroClix is my number 5.
Awesome. Well, my number 4 is one you mentioned. You have not played it, but I have played it. I like it a lot. I cannot say I've played it the most out of all these games. I've actually probably played it the least out of all the games that are on my list.
Yeah.
But that said, it does not take away from my enjoyment of the game, and it is my favorite in the series of games that it has that the family that it's in. It's my favorite version, and that is Infinity Gauntlet, a love letter game. I really like the way they've done this game. This is a game where you're either Thanos or you're everyone against Thanos, which an obvious theme to do, right? But the idea of this game of Thanos either getting the stones all on the table at one side or knocking out enough people, it's a theme that, again, simple in nature, but to fit this all in this little bag in such a succinct game that's fun to play, you can't beat it. And we talk a lot, and Ryan, we've talked about this a few times that you've been on. These are not what would have been considered normal 2 years ago. We are not traveling as much, right? But this game to me has such great value because you have a chance to get out and travel. You can bring this with you. And to me, that adds an extra value to it. It's definitely not in like that top 3 Marvel games for me because, again, haven't played it as much. And the other thing for me is that it's just not as deep of a game. But when it comes down to it, a lot of fun. Families can pick this up really easily. So I highly recommend this game. It is my favorite love letter game, which has a great series of variants, and so this one is my favorite. The Batman one I've been told is really good, as I think I noted previously.
Yeah.
But I never played the regular version of Love Letter.
I think so. Is that how this works? Where Thanos has to have the gems on the board, like they have to be.
He has to get the gems
right?
on the board, but you also can win by knocking out enough heroes. So
Yeah.
there's multiple ways to win. The heroes have to, take down Thanos essentially, but it's definitely it plays pretty quick, like I said, and there's a decent amount of game in this little bag, and the components are nice. I have sleeved my cards personally, but the components are actually really nice. You see those little plastic +2s.
Yeah, is that with the game, or is that
those are included? Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That is a default component that
Nice.
they throw in the game. So
yeah, with Love Letter especially, it's such when that game came out, it was a big deal because I would kicked off the whole micro game thing, and yeah, Love Letter is a game that I really enjoy. I really really enjoy. It's still in my top 100 of games. Yeah. It's just so good. So, but my number 4 is the game that I was thinking of when I said there's another game that I feel like kicked 5-Minute Marvel out for me, and that is Marvel United. So Marvel United is a game I just played for the first time yesterday, and I remember when this was on Kickstarter. It's a cooperative game where you're all working together against a villain, and as the game goes on, you play different cards, but the sequence of cards matters because what's going to happen is on your turn, you play the card that you've played, and you also play the card that the previous player played as well. So you're just building up as you go along. It makes for a really interesting dynamic because you definitely don't want to just rush in with the best card, because you also want to keep in mind what your partner is doing as well. It's really fun, super accessible. It's easy for family, and it has the chibi art, which is always a plus. But it does have Squirrel Girl in the Kickstarter edition, so there's the other Squirrel Girl. It doesn't have Doctor Doom though, so I got to give it a point down for that, unfortunately. But
the thing about this one, so I kickstarted this. I have not played it yet. So
yeah.
I have predicted. And I think I told you this before. I predict this game could join my list at some point. This will arrive. I have the big box of everything coming. So Squirrel Girl is coming. That is the theme. We may as well just call this Squirrel Girl and other Marvel games.
Yeah.
But I will say the thing that excites me about this game is just the accessibility of it. But it seems like it's fun enough that I could get this on the table with some of the gaming groups that I have, and it's not gonna feel too childish. Do you know what I mean? Outside maybe the art. Some people don't like that art.
Yeah, but
I like it.
But what's really cool about it, so you could play it with family and you're all working together. At the same time, though, if you're playing with other players like that, or just board gamers, or your friends, you don't need to actually have much table talk, and I actually prefer that because one of my biggest problems always with cooperative games is the potential quarterbacking from other players.
Yes.
So what's great about Marvel United is you can really keep quiet and you don't need to actually say what you want to do, and it's such a quick decision that it's really, they knocked out of the park with this. So I'm very happy with it.
It's really visual too, because it's going around in a circle on the table. So it's you could see, I compare it to, you could see your epic adventure or whatever you want to call it taking place right in front of you, and visually it's just extremely good looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, to me, again, that's a big deal. So I like that a lot. Now, I think the next game, though, on this list is going to be a big deal to a lot of people.
Sure.
I know this was a big deal to me for a really long time, and just times have changed, and that happens in the world of games, and that is going to be Marvel Legendary. Legendary, a deck Marvel building game. Yeah, this game has meant a lot to me, and this was my first deck building game. This is a 2012 game, and it is a game that introduced me to a world. and a world that I love, man.
This
But
was
let me
this was
just
your
tell
first
you,
game?
no. So
Oh,
this was my first deck builder.
oh, I see. Okay, yeah,
So this was my first deck. This was the introduction to deck building, and it's probably my first Marvel game. Actually, this one again, it stands, I think, a pretty good test of time. I will argue there is a game or two that may have surpassed it in terms of deck building for me, and you'll see how that is. But I will just say that this one still is high for me. I would still play this, but is this getting plays to the level that it used to? No. Do I even feel, and this is the level that I like a game later on here, which not hinting, but it's kind of obvious if you know Marvel games.
yeah,
There's a game on here that surpassed it and gets all the plays now. So this one I have to show the respect to. I think it holds its weight as a top 5 Marvel game for me. So for that reason and that reason only, even though it's not getting as many plays now, this takes my number 3 spot without question.
sure,
It's a pretty easy pick.
yeah. I may talk about it more later.
You might. Okay. Well, we'll find out if you'll talk about it more later. But I
Yeah,
know that you have a different one to talk about next.
I
So
do. I
let's
do.
hear what
So
that one is.
my number 3 is Dice Masters. So Dice Masters is a really cool system. It's a bag building dice game. It's a dice builder. The first dice builder of this ilk was like Quarriors by WizKids. And this was like kind of like Quarriors 2.0, but it has some interesting like mechanics from like even like Magic the Gathering. So what goes on in this game is you are recruiting different dice, you're playing them out on the board, and you're just trying to knock out the other opponent. First person to lose all their points, loses like their health points. It's really cool. With this one, Avengers versus X-Men was the very first one, and I think it had something like 150 cards, like all these different options that you could pick. And I remember it was also like a random bag kind of thing. So you spent, I think it was like $2 or something. You spend and you get a couple dice and a couple cards in this pack. But it also had the starter kit, which the starter deck itself had one of the best cards, which was this Beast. Beast had like an amazing card, and it was only in the starter kit. And I remember there was like this big FOMO, and it's like, oh my god, I gotta rush and get this game. So I remember driving like to Target, to my local game store, just trying to pick up any time I could find this game. And I ended up getting everything for it, and I was ready to go for the next one. And I had to pull myself back because I'm like, all right, I spent enough on this. I just got to slow down. So I do have everything for Avengers versus X-Men, and it does not have Squirrel Girl. Sorry, but it does have Doctor Doom. Big plus, I know.
I'm
So
waiting. I'm waiting for the Doctor Doom versus Squirrel Girl battle to ensue in the comment thread.
yeah,
I would love to
it's
hear.
happened in the comics.
Yeah. So if you're in the comment thread, who would you prefer to play as, Squirrel Girl or Doctor Doom? I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Show us some of that battle. That's a good one. Look, I have to say I have not played this one personally, but looked it up a little bit over the time, and ultimately it was one that I'd love to get to the table at some point and play.
Yeah.
But it looks fun because I do like that bag kind of building, and
Oh, it's
I like
great.
that. And I've come to love that more so in the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So
With Quacks and Orleone and
Quacks was the introduction for me. So
right.
for those who haven't played Quacks of Quellenberg, Quacks is a great game, but my God, I don't win it because my child wins it, because it is still a luck-based game. By the way, Ryan Dash jumped in and says, you can't stop me from playing both.
It's true.
Don't worry, Ryan. We will not try to stop you from playing both. I will say, though, the game that I have next on my list is something that may surprise some, but I am also basing it based off my own personal experience with the game and what I've had happen with in my family and us playing this, and especially over COVID-19.
Sure.
This game has meant a lot to my family, and that is going to be Thanos Rising, Avengers Infinity War. I stress something about this game. Thematically, as I look at my favorite Marvel games, this one honestly may be my favorite from the thematics of it. The Thanos Rising mechanism of play the cards, so a Yahtzee style of sort with rolling the dice for your attacks, has come into play for other IPs, Harry Potter and Star Wars.
Yeah.
But
But
those are big universes they're doing that in within like these huge episodic. This is putting it down to the Infinity War. And so it just works so well here.
yeah.
The other thing about this game is you're trying to roll dice to collect cards, but also fight. So you have to still make that strategic decision. Do we need to fight this round, or do I really need to work on getting these cards? Because the people around this board can get eliminated. And if too many of them get eliminated, you lose. So sometimes you're playing the defense game of, oh, we got to save War Machine. So I'm going to bring War Machine onto my team. War Machine may not be as helpful on your team and be more helpful to someone else. So you've got to make some real decisions, and the abilities of all these cards just make it so much fun. I love the theme. As a Marvel game, it just works so well. And I will just tell you, not right within the picture here is the actual mat that shows Thanos and the gems that you're putting the Infinity Stones
right
on it. Yeah. It's really cool. And I don't know, the whole experience of playing this game. My son is so much fun. You can see my son in this photo. We love playing this game. So
yeah,
it's a real joy.
It's co-op. Is that how it works? So you're all versing Thanos, and
you are working together to do it. And I would argue you do have to pick cards, not because they're your favorite characters, which I would argue some people might want to do.
Sure.
But for their abilities, and they do pair. So, for example, Captain America, if I was to pick up the Bucky Barnes card, as an example, I get an extra dice to roll because of the type of card that Bucky Barnes is.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm going to think about, I want to get the max amount of dice and the max amount of dice of different types, because there's different types of dice to get different types of resources on the board. And so you're going to want to have a good mix. And they all have special abilities too.
Yeah, I still haven't tried it. And I know you did mention different IPs, but the one I actually really do want to try, they have a Plankton Rising, which is set in the SpongeBob universe.
I did not know that one.
Yeah, that is the one I really want to try.
Plankton Rising?
Yeah.
Wow. What is the theme? I mean, I get it, but what are they fighting?
I'm assuming him trying to steal the formula for the Krabby Patty. That's what I would assume it would be, right?
Yeah, I guess. I will say I did not know about that one. I know about the other ones, but look, I highly recommend this game. It is a very fun game, and I enjoy it quite a bit. And as you can tell from a photo that I shared, my son loves this game, so we play it a lot.
Yeah, that one I'm going to pick up at some point. So I did mention before, I was going to get back to this, and I am ready to get back to it right now. My number 2 is Legendary, the Marvel deck building game. So Legendary as well. The first time I played it, I actually dismissed it because I played a lot of deck builders prior, and a co-op deck builder was an interesting concept, but the very opening mission was like crazy easy. Like it was just like, okay, we got Red Skull, the end. So I ended up getting it later on through a trade because I'm like, okay, why not? It was a good price, so I got it. And I ended up doing there's actually rules online for golden solo mode, which was to up the difficulty for solo play, and that really helped out. And as soon as I got the first expansion, Dark City, it just like knocked it out of there, you know? It was so spot on. Like now I'm like, okay, now I'm getting beat by like Mr. Sinister, you know, now I'm getting beat. So, and Legendary then later on would have different expansions that I would pick up. You know, the Guardians of the Galaxy one was probably my favorite with the shards. Like that was such a cool concept. And later on, every expansion that came out, it would add new things. But then it got to a certain point where you kind of just needed like a book like this thick of just the keywords, you know? It was starting to turn into like something like, you know, like big rule book for that. So, but now there's enough combination of cards that I know I will never be able to play all of them. I would just never be able to play all of them. I have expansions of this game I still haven't even touched because there's just so much with it, and the setup did take up a lot, and the cleanup was interesting as well. um, so, but it does a good job of having all these different characters. You could really play anyone you want. Yes, you could play Squirrel Girl. You could play against Doctor Doom, and he's very weak in it. So there's a point off for that. So whatever. But Legendary was an interesting game, and it actually led off to other spin-offs with it, which I thought were really cool. Like there's Legendary Encounters, which had the aliens and Predator. There's yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned, I mean, you mentioned Smith. I think that's part of the challenge for me too, because when I came into the game, it was hard to get some of them.
Yeah.
It was one of the first ones I played, but it was a little bit after the fact. I was playing some other games. I had not gotten to that deck building. Yeah. So when I played it, certain ones were a little bit hard to obtain, and I would have loved some of those. And I think I might have put it into the number 2 spot, potentially for me, had that happen. But the thing about the game is it was very versatile. Like you could really do a lot of things. Yeah. I never thought about the fact that there was so many terms though, because having played all of them, I can only imagine at what point it got to, because this game has been around a long time.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was
8 years is not a short amount of time.
Right. And not only that, but there was at least 2 expansions a year. It got to a certain point where there's just and every expansion had brand new terms, but again, it did bring in some really cool co-op. I had a lot of great times playing 2-player, especially. I think it's fantastic at 2. The more players you add, I feel like does drag a little bit. But it's still a solid choice. And like I said, it did do some spin-offs. The Buffy spin-off is fantastic. Yeah. That one's really fun. I know there's a James Bond one. I haven't tried that one yet. X-Files one. Yeah, I haven't tried that one either. Yeah,
I'd love to try the X-Files one. I have no clue. I don't know what they did with that one, but I would, if someone gave that, if that was available for relatively inexpensive, I'd pick it up in a heartbeat.
Sure,
just because of X-Files.
Yeah,
but look, I think if you're watching this and you play games and you know Marvel, you probably know what my number 1 is based on what I've already said. I will just say this is the one that gets a lot of plays now. This is the one that I get to do. My son plays this with me, and I share that because I think it's important. My son's 7, and he picked this up fairly quickly. As long as he could get to the basic text of the game, understand the basic actions of the card, and we taught him an individual character, he was able to do this one. And honest to gosh, we're going to play this one a long time. This is not going to be, I would be surprised if I told you I have a new favorite Marvel game in a year or 2 or 3, because I think this game has a lot of legs as long as the IP sticks. And for me, that is Marvel Champions, the card game. This game is a blast. I love the decks that have come out so far. I mean, there are some that are better than others, obviously. But when it comes down to the fact with this game is, one thing you spoke to was the terminology. They have added new terms to this game, but one, I think some of them are very obvious, but over the course of the expansions in the first year, they haven't gone overboard with it either.
Yeah.
The packs themselves have brought you some diverse characters, but a lot of the same that you would expect. I think from the fact that what's going on in the MCU, a lot of the characters have kind of aligned in that way so far. The game itself plays very simply. You have a hand of cards. You're playing cards down to fight a villain, and the key terminology in the game is fairly straightforward. Thwart, which is to kind of fight off these scenarios, and then the ability to actually attack the enemies and knock them out. And the cool thing with this, and Ryan, you and I have played this, I know, over Zoom.
Yeah.
And you can do this over Zoom as long as as long as both people have the villain decks, and really that's what it takes, because the hero themselves, you could play your hero cards and just have the villain cards ready to go and bring them into your play area. And to me, that's the winner for a lot of reasons. Playing this over Zoom, was a blast. I had such a good time with it, and we even did. There is a scenario with Kang.
Yeah.
Kang kicked our butt, one,
Yeah.
but I will just say the villains that they're adding are not necessarily. They're mixing it up pretty well, though. I mean, we Kang was a fun one that I was so excited to see, because I think a lot of people, honestly, and if you have kids, you were interested. A lot of kids are interested in Kang in like the Lego video game, and they were like,
Oh,
"Who the heck
interesting.
is Kang?"
Yeah.
But Kang, and some of these other guys are great. The gameplay is really, really, for the most part, if you get the base game, very simply, it's easy to teach. It's going to get more complicated over time, and I think you're going to run the same thing that happens with Legendary. You're going to get more and more terms, but
Yeah.
the base game itself, in a box, you've got a heck of a game, and if that's even all you got, you're going to have a great time.
Yeah. I mean, no surprise, but my number one is also Marvel Champion, so I might as well just steamroll right through this, right? Yeah, Marvel Champions is the reason also why I haven't touched Legendary in a very long time. Not saying anything bad about Legendary. I think it's still a fine game, but I got Marvel Champions. If I want to get my superhero card game fix, this is the superhero card game fix. I do like a lot of the Fantasy Flight LCGs that have come out. Most obvious for me is Arkham Horror, the card game, and this one does such a great job, especially at solo. It's so quick to just jump in, fight, and be done. It's such an easy setup. Don't get me wrong, I do love Arkham Horror, the card game. I love the scenarios there and everything. And that's something that the Marvel Champions game, unfortunately, does lack on. But it looks like they are trying to go that route. I mean, the latest big box was Rise of Red Skull, right? And that one had that campaign sort of structure. Not as extensive as the Arkham Horror one, but again, this game is like a home run. And I'm saying all this praise about Arkham Horror, the card game, but I'm pretty sure I like this one better, just because of
one of the things, Ryan, when I talk to people about this versus Arkham, I do always say too, it's definitely different. Like you could put this on the table and play any superhero or two versus any villain and just do it, and you can adjust the scenarios. The scenarios in this game, they're flexible.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the biggest thing. I can play this with anyone, anywhere, and I don't need to know all the scenario information. But in Arkham Horror, the story is so deep, that I do think that's a strength for it. But in its own way, Marvel Champions has its own strength that's slightly different because it doesn't have that. So I think you give some respect for them owning that, but at the same time, I would love something a little bit more in depth at some point. But I don't know that I'd want it to become Arkham Horror, Arkham Horror, the Marvel version either. Right. I don't think I'd want that. I love what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's ready for that, but I do love the things that it does take from that system, and the things that it's taken from the Lord of the Rings card game and all these other LCGs that were in place already from Fantasy Flight. It just takes just like the core mechanics and gets them going. And I absolutely really love going online and finding other people's decks and trying them out. One of the last crazy decks I played was a Black Widow deck, where how the game goes is you're either playing as you have two sides of your card, of your identity card, the alter ego side. The flip side is the superhero side, right? So when you're in alter ego side and it's the villain's turn, the villain is not going to attack you because they don't know that you're, a superhero. So they're just scheming their plan, right? And then if you are in a superhero side, then they're gonna punch you in the face. So what's really fun about this deck that I played with Black Widow is that it focuses on staying in alter ego mode as long as you can. And it was such an interesting balance. It was really fun. Because what happens is as the villain does their scheme, the threat level goes up, and it's all this thing where you could lose the game because of that. So it's really an interesting trade-off where you're not flipping as much and not doing direct attacks, but doing a lot of manipulation. It was really cool, and I love the community behind this. Like they're so welcoming. There's so much decks out there to try out, and all these combinations.
And
As
the
soon as
custom content.
yeah, there's tons of custom content.
People making fantastic custom content for
Yeah,
this game that I think. So I've printed out a few of those. I'm not at the highest level quality, but just to check them out. And
sure.
I mean, there's some really talented people out there making really good decks. And I imagine because these communities are pretty active with people from the industry that they're aware of what people are doing, and they're definitely learning and getting ideas. So
Yeah,
it's been a very good community to be a part of, and the deck building part is a lot of fun. And even if you're like, oh god, I'm just going to use the base deck that the game came with, trust me, over time you're going to feel comfortable because it's not a game that it's difficult
yeah.
to learn the deck building. This is a wonderful introduction in a lot of ways to what it is to be in that living card game world. And I would say, I'd almost say start with this before you go into something like an Arkham Horror, in my perspective.
Oh yeah,
because it's
you
really
literally you open the box and the cards are in the order for you. They're like, okay, take these cards, that's your deck. Take these cards, that's your deck. Take these cards, that's the villain's deck. And then you just start playing, you know? And as the expansions come out, it's the same thing. You open it up, here's Captain America, here's his cards. Take those, go play with them. And then you could iterate upon them. But it's so cool how they do that. Yeah, and I look forward to every month just to get a new deck. And you have my Quicksilver. I need to go get my Quicksilver.
Yes, I do have your Quicksilver. I do want to go back to a comment earlier, by the way. Take over Bikini Bottom, referring to the Rising Thanos.
Oh, Plankton Rising. Yeah.
Yes, so Plankton Rising. Yeah, I look, if you get a hold of this game and when it comes done, I would love to like play this with you and we can video record it because it just sounds hilarious. Ryan does, of course, ask, is there Squirrel Girl custom content? And I'm pretty sure there is.
There is. There's a whole deck for Squirrel Girl, and she has all her different squirrels as different cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of squirrels. It gets a little nuts.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
I did that. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah, I just lost any subscriber I had.
Oh man.
I guess we should note here too. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation, everybody. One thing that Ryan and I are going to be doing, we're going to confirm the date, but we're going to be having at least one Marvel Monday a month starting in March, and we're going to talk about Marvel Champions and really look at some decks. I'm hoping we might even be able to look at not just Quicksilver, but Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
By that time, it would be wonderful to be able to talk about both of them. But we'll be going back for some older decks as well and talking about our favorite cards. And so we'll be doing that and that will be all around Marvel Champions. Maybe we'll throw in some other Marvel games in the process. But we definitely want to come back. Yeah. Well, we definitely want to be talking more about Marvel. And it was one thing that because it's such an accessible game, I thought it was really appropriate for the channel. So I was thrilled when Ryan was into doing that. I knew he would be. Yeah. But so, yeah, I think we're going to look at, we'll let you know, keep your eyes tuned on the channel. Be on the lookout. Give a channel a little bit of a like and a little bit of a subscribe. And as you do that, you'll be seeing those updates come in. And we'll definitely plan for one of those on a Monday sometime in March. And we'll be looking at Quicksilver for sure. And then, Ryan, let's definitely cross our fingers on Scarlet Witch. I'd love to talk about the Scarlet Witch pack.
Yeah, she looks crazy. It looks like a lot of fun there.
Yeah, but I will say with that first video, we'll definitely give a little bit of an overview of some of our favorite characters and decks and whatnot before we break down kind of that deck. But hopefully you'll tune in. Again, thank you for coming aboard the Tabletop Express tonight. Had a lot of fun talking with Ryan here about Marvel. I will note Ryan's going to be back. Check the schedule. But we got another video coming up. Anthony is going to join us, and we are going to talk about our favorite games published before 2000.
Yeah, no more hotness. It's oldness.
Definitely not
the oldness.
It is not the hotness. It is not the hot. One of the games I will tell everyone on my list is definitely one that I played as a child, and I don't even know where to find it now, but it's still like ingrained in my head. So I hope everyone will tune in for that. I'll make sure I drop a link to that in the description after the video and codes on YouTube. And if you have a chance, definitely say hi to Ryan and I on Twitter and all the great places. Like I said, thank you everyone for joining this evening, for being aboard the Tabletop Express and supporting the channel. And we will be back. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.